Hello, this is Professor Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at the Fashion Institute of Technology, working on another tutorial. This is for JD139 ideations. Focus on this tutorial is going to be getting more involved with some of the advanced functions within Painter. Alright, some things may look a little different here in that I'm using Painter 12. That's what the copy I have, but the principles will remain the same. Going to start with a new canvas, 6 by 6 by 300. Mind you, you can find this toggled on these arrows in case yours is set to something different. And hit OK. Alright. Now my brush is already set. Yours should be set to 2D pencil. You should have already gone to the brush control panel. You should already have it set to circular, should already be set to cover, soft grainy cover, should already be set to the slight triangular dab profile. If it's not looking like a regular pixel or shape of a circle here, you should be able to go to your preferences. Under interface, make sure that brush ghost is turned on, but only if this says single pixel. If it says anything else, you'll have to come here first to iconic, set it to single pixel, then come back and set it to brush ghost. I have mine set to inches. You can set yours to pixels or inches. It's fine. Alright. I have my color set to red and gray, which is not very useful. I have color sets set up, generally speaking, but this will work fine. Remember, to switch back and forth, it's Shift-X. I usually like to draw at about 62. Alright. So, I've got my pencil here. I'm going to talk about drawing stones, which is going to really get us involved in some other ideas. So, my brush is set to a very transparent. Set the transparency to about 70%. That's fine. That's fine. I have the coarse paper up. So let's say I want to draw a circle. Let's say I want to draw a pear. Let's say I want to draw a marquee. The reason I draw them in dark shapes first is then I can come back with a light. And for me, it's easier to see the shapes when I draw them that way. And then I can come tidy them up with white afterwards. But that's just my preference. I'm not going to get tidy. It's just to give myself an idea. Anytime I draw something on the canvas, I'm going to select it. Selection is this rectangular selection window. There's actually a keyboard shortcut for that. You can hit R, just R, and that'll activate it. I'm going to pick this up. To pick it up, I need to activate the Layer Adjuster tool. It's this tool here. Shortcut for that is F. And that will give me what I need. Okay, so obviously these are not tidy drawings of a stone. By the way, every time I make a new layer, unless there's a reason not to, I tend to keep my layers in gel form. So I set that from default to gel. Okay. The reason for that is, let's see, I'll make a copy of this layer and bring it in. So now I have two of them. If it's default, I can't see through it. If it's gel, I can. Alright? And I often find that to be useful. I deleted that layer by right-clicking on its name and hitting delete layer. Right-click on your styluses is by default the front end of that button on top. It has two buttons, one at the front, one at the... It's the same button, but if you press at the front or you press at the back, it has different functionality. By default, most pens are set to the front being right-click. I prefer mine at the back, so I have adjusted that. We can talk about how that's done in class. So I have this. I want to make it a tracing paper layer, so I'm going to kick the transparency back to about 20%. And I'm going to activate mirror painting. It's right here. You'll see a green line. Sometimes you'll see two green lines, a horizontal. If you don't, click here, and this will give you the horizontal and the vertical. You can move this. Don't. Move your drawing instead. So I've set this up. In order to move my drawing, I need to reactivate the layer mover, layer adjuster. So I can click here, or just hit F. I'm going to draw the round stone first. I'm going to zoom in. Remember, I can zoom in by using Control Shift and then clicking. And I can zoom out by holding down Control Alt Shift and clicking. Or I can grab up in here. By grabbing that, I can slide. Anyone is fine. To draw this, the round stone, I'm going to want to have a different kind of mirror than I've got. Right now it's set to mirror. I want to set it to kaleidoscope. I want to set it to kaleidoscope with 8 segments. Okay? I'm going to take my pencil down to a more usable size. It'll depend on what size you made your drawing. For this drawing, 4 is about right. And I don't want to have so much texture right now, so I'm going to take the grain down to maybe 39, 35%. I can see that's not very well centered, so I'm going to activate it. I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move that up and down a little bit. Now if it does this instead, you have to get the layer adjuster reactivated. It needs that layer adjuster to be the active tool in order for the keyboard arrow keys to work. I want a new layer. That's located right here. And now I'm going to redraw the outside circle. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I can start anywhere, because anywhere I draw, it's going to repeat itself all the way around. Change it to white to clean it up a little bit. Finding that brush a little large, take it down in size. We don't have to go crazy here, because if we really want mechanical perfection, we'll draw this in Rhino. We have software that does that better than Painter does. That's good enough. Okay. The table on a stone is about a little more than half of its diameter. So if you can visualize a circle, that's about half the size of this. That's about what you want. This, however, will not be a circle when we're done. This will be an octagon. Okay? Okay. Now I could use the straight brush tool to make these straight lines easier. I'm just not bothering. To draw my star facets, I'm going to make a mark about halfway. and draw my star. To draw my bezel facet, draw another line here. And then to split my upper girdle facets, I draw a single line there. Turn off that lower layer, and turn off my mirror, my symmetry, and I have a round brilliant stone. That table's a little small, but it's okay. Alright? I don't expect you to draw your stones this clean this week, but it's nice to know that you can. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to draw the pear shape. So, reactivate my my symmetry and move my pear shape into position. I hit F to activate this. Pull it up. Now radial's not going to work on this, the kaleidoscope. I need to go back to regular horizontal and vertical. This is actually going off at a weird angle, so I need to rotate it. To rotate in Painter, you come to Effects. Actually, if you just hit your layer adjuster there, Edit, Transform, you have Scale or Rotate. If we hit Rotate, we have to zoom out a little. Alright, it won't allow us, so cancel. Then zoom out a little so you can see better. This looks like it's doing something, it really isn't. It's just a visual artifact. Transform, rotate. I'm looking for the ability to rotate this freely. I mean, I can type in a dimension here. I can type in 10 and it will do it. And it updates live, so I can type in 1, -1, -3, and so on, until it looks the way I want it to. That's too far. That's pretty good. No, actually it wasn't. That's better. Okay. This is actually what they call in a transform state, a free transform state. So it has handlebars floating around. To get rid of those, we're going to come here and go to Transform, Commit Transform. Basically, whenever you're going to transform a layer in Rhino, it converts it to a low resolution copy of itself that you can then play with. And then you have to get it back to its original high resolution by hitting Commit Transform. Another way to have transformed this to rotate it would have been to free transform it all by itself. Okay? And then hit the rotate button up here. And with the rotate button in place, you can rotate it freehand by eye. And commit transform. So I have my layer with my round. I want to copy and paste that, so Control C, Control V. Turn off my original. Take my new one. I'm going to free transform it. And I can now grab these handles. And stretch it until it pretty much fills the proportions of my, and if I just put my little X in the middle there, I can move it until it comes pretty close to what I want. Edit. Now notice how it's not see-through. It's because I didn't commit transform. I didn't gel it. If I gel it, you can see through it completely. This is going to be my new template for my pear shape. I want to make this one a little darker. I want to make this one a little more transparent. Yeah, it's quite a bit more transparent. Reason I'm doing this is so that I can using my keyboard with the shifter key. I want to make sure this is centered here. This doesn't matter so much because a pear isn't symmetrical top to bottom. Okay. Alright, that's fine. I'm going to put a new layer above it. Everything you draw you want to be on the top layer, usually speaking. There are exceptions, but I'm trying to cover this, so I'm going to put a layer above it. Go back to my brush stroke. Okay. I really can't have this horizontal line here, or it's going to replicate everything I do above and below, which is not what I want. So, going back to mirror, symmetry, I'm going to turn off that line. Okay. And now, trying to pay a certain amount of attention to the pear shape that I sketched in the back, because even though that won't be clean, it's a fair assumption that it's roughly the shape I want. Now, with all that stuff underneath, it's hard to see clearly, so I'll turn those off. I turn them off by clicking on the little eye symbol. It's important to make sure that I have the right one active, because if I have this one active and I draw, I don't have anything until I turn it back on. See that? So just because you've turned it off doesn't mean that it can't be affected. Alright? If you want it to not be affected, lock it. And then you'll get that symbol which says you can't draw on it. Alright? But it's always just best to remember what layer you want to be on and what you're trying to accomplish. Okay. The table on a pear is the same proportion. It's about 50%. So if you split the distance from center to girdle all the way around, basically doing an offset, that should be pretty good. You'll notice I'm not terribly concerned about line quality. I'm more concerned about getting the right proportion. Line quality is a pretty straightforward thing to repair in here. I'll also do all of my black line work before I come back in and try and erase anything. Otherwise, I've found it's really easy to spend too much time fussing over a piece of line work. faceting pattern on a pair is slightly different than the faceting pattern on a round. It's the same number of facets, but their orientation shifts. Okay? This is something that I should have foreseen. That's okay. I'll go ahead and draw the stars first. Star facets on a pair always fork. At top and bottom. Okay. And there's another fork halfway in between. You want these facets to come about halfway out into this space. Okay. I can tidy these up. Now, I can draw these much cleaner with the straight line tool, but the straight line tool doesn't lend itself very well to sketching, and I need to kind of figure out the proportions of these facets before I go and draw them all bold. Okay? The way you would handle that, or could handle it, is you could have yet another layer. And that layer would be to do finished facets. I'll show you. These are actually a little too small. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, where it would be problematic to have started to draw them with the straight line tool. Okay, so now I'm going to sketch the bezel facets. Put a point about halfway. Undo, you can do that in Painter if you don't like what's happening. It's again about halfway. And once again about halfway. Okay? And then I could come in and erase and tidy these up. If I'm going to do that final layer to really clean it, I won't take this too far. Okay? I'll just add the new layer. I might want to make this more transparent for a moment. Go to the top layer. Select straight line tool. Oh, set to white. If you make a mistake and you have to undo, do yourself a favor. Click freehand and then go back to straight line segments. You kind of need to purge Painter's memory a little bit for best results there. Okay. Now I have a couple of choices here. Painter wants you to hit enter when you do this, but if I hit enter, it's going to take a line and shoot it straight back to where it began. I don't want that. To get out of that, you just go here and come back. And now you can do whatever you want. Hitting enter will make no difference one way or another now. Alright, so but this is a mess, because I've got all kinds of stuff going on, and if I bring this back up, I can't tell I've done anything good, right? I'm going to take this top layer I just drew. I'm going to make it transparent. You can't see any difference right now, but you will. I'm going to go to that layer number 4, change to white. And erase those lines. When I'm done, I can come back here, make that fully opaque, turn that off, and I have a finished pear. Okay. Now the problem is that these are all hooked together, and they're different transparencies, what have you. There are a couple of ways of handling this. One is to select both of these and go group, and that'll group those layers together and collapse. Another way to do it is to do a control copy and paste, draw a selection around what you want to do. Doesn't matter what layer you really have selected. If you go Control Alt C, Control Paste, Control V, this layer, which you can't see because it's right on top, actually takes a picture of everything that's currently turned on. And so now I can delete these layers. And it's right there. In fact, I can delete this oval that I made as a reference. I'll keep my round, and I'll keep my sketch. Okay? This is an excellent way to draw stones. I'll continue with this tutorial and take it a little further later. Thanks for watching.